Have you ever been caught in a really bad storm? The kind where the sky turns black, thunder cracks like a whip, and rain comes down in sheets? Now imagine facing that not in a sturdy house, but out in the open, millions of years ago, with nothing but a rock overhang for shelter. This wasn't just a scary thought. It was a daily reality for our earliest ancestors. Today, we're diving deep into the past, to a time when survival was a minute-by-minute battle, and we'll uncover one of the most profound human behaviors, how we began to say goodbye to our dead. Let's travel back in time, way back, to the Pliocene and Pleistocene epochs. We're talking about a period stretching from over 5 million to about 12,000 years ago. The world was a different place, wilder and more unpredictable. Early hominins, like Australopithecus and later early members of our own genus, Homo, were just finding their footing. They weren't the top of the food chain yet. Far from it. They were prey as much as they were predators, and one of their biggest adversaries wasn't a saber-toothed cat, but the weather itself. Picture the African savanna. One moment, it's scorching hot under the sun. The next, the atmosphere shifts. A supercell thunderstorm, a monstrous rotating beast of a storm, starts to form. These aren't your average rain showers. We're talking about storms that can produce grapefruit-sized hail, flash floods that turn dry riverbeds into raging torrents in seconds, and lightning that can split ancient trees in half. For a small group of Australopithecines huddled together, this would have been terrifying. They didn't have weather apps or Doppler radar. Their only warning was the darkening sky and the instinctual fear that prickled their skin. Their best bet for survival was to find shelter, and fast. Caves were prime real estate, but they were often occupied by larger, more dangerous animals like giant hyenas or cave bears. So they'd have to settle for less ideal spots, a shallow rock overhang, a dense thicket of trees, or even just a low-lying area. But these offered limited protection. A flash flood could sweep them away without warning. A lightning strike could hit a nearby tree, sending deadly splinters flying or starting a wildfire that would trap them. The sheer force of the wind and rain could cause hypothermia, even in a warm climate. Every major storm was a life-or-death gamble. Archaeological evidence paints a grim picture. Fossil sites are often found in what were once riverbeds or low-lying floodplains. When paleontologists find a jumble of hominin and animal bones all mixed together, it often tells a story of a catastrophic event, like a flash flood that caught a group by surprise, sweeping them away and burying them in mud and sediment. It's a stark reminder of how vulnerable our ancestors were. They lived and died at the mercy of the elements. But something incredible began to happen amidst this constant struggle for survival. As our ancestors' brains grew larger and more complex, so did their emotional lives. They weren't just a troop of animals. They were becoming a family, a community. They formed bonds. They cared for each other. And when one of them fell, whether to a predator, an illness, or a violent storm, it left a void. This is where we see the first faint glimmers of one of humanity's most defining traits: ritual. The concept of burial didn't just appear overnight. It was a slow, evolving process. The earliest evidence is highly debated among scientists. For the longest time, the first clear intentional burials were associated with Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens, dating back around 100,000 years. These sites, like the Shanidar Cave in Iraq or the Kafse Cave in Israel, show bodies carefully placed in graves, sometimes with objects like tools or animal bones, which some interpret as grave goods. One Neanderthal skeleton in Shanidar was even found with clumps of pollen, leading to the romantic flower burial theory, suggesting they were laid to rest on a bed of wildflowers. While this is now debated, the pollen could have been brought in by rodents. It sparked our imagination about the emotional depth of our ancient relatives. But what if the story starts even earlier? Let's go back to Spain, to a site called Sima de los Huesos, which means the pit of bones. Deep inside a cave system, archaeologists found a chamber at the bottom of a 43-foot vertical shaft. And in that chamber, they found the remains of at least 28 individuals of a species called Homo heidelbergensis, an ancestor of Neanderthals, who lived around 430,000 years ago. Now, this wasn't just a random jumble of bones like a flood deposit. The bodies seemed to have been intentionally dropped down this shaft. There were very few animal bones mixed in, and the skeletons were largely complete. It wasn't a living site. No one was butchering animals or making tools down there. So, how did they all get there? The researchers who excavated the site believed this was a form of primitive mortuary practice, that for whatever reason, this group of early humans chose this specific hard-to-reach place to deposit their dead over a long period. Was it simply a convenient way to dispose of bodies, or was it something more? Was this deep, dark pit seen as a special place, a connection to something beyond the world of the living? Among the thousands of bones, they found only one single, solitary tool, a beautiful, masterfully crafted hand axe made of reddish quartzite, a material not found anywhere near the cave. It's been nicknamed Excalibur. Why was it there? It wasn't dropped by accident. The scientists believe it was a votive offering, a symbolic object placed with the dead. If they're right, this is profound. It suggests that nearly 500,000 years ago, our ancestors were not only deliberately disposing of their dead, but were also engaging in symbolic acts, imbuing an object with meaning and offering it as part of a ritual. This is a huge leap in cognitive and emotional development. It implies an awareness of death, a sense of loss, and perhaps the beginnings of abstract thought, the idea that life and death are significant. It's the first step on the long road to the elaborate funerals, memorials, and belief systems that we have today. Why start doing this? Why go to all the trouble of carrying a deceased member of your group to a specific cave and dropping them down a dangerous shaft? There are several theories. On a practical level, it gets a decaying body away from the living area, preventing the spread of disease and discouraging scavengers. But it's likely more than just hygiene. Perhaps it was about respect for the individual, a way of keeping the group together, even in death. Or maybe it was the dawn of spiritual belief, the idea that the body needed to be in a special place, a passage to another world, or simply a place of rest. Facing down a deadly storm and carefully laying a loved one to rest might seem like two very different things. But they are deeply connected. Both are about how early humans responded to the powerful, often terrifying forces of the natural world. The storm represents the chaos and the constant threat of oblivion. The burial represents the response, an act of order, of memory, and of love in the face of that chaos. It's a declaration that a life mattered, that it was more than just flesh and bone that would be swept away by the next flood. It was a member of the family, a part of the community, and they deserved to be remembered. So, the next time you hear thunder rumbling in the distance, take a moment. Think about those early ancestors, huddled together, looking out at the storm. They endured so that we could be here. And in their struggle, they discovered not only how to survive, but how to be human, finding meaning and dignity in the face of life's greatest certainties, the storm and the quiet that follows. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into our incredible human story. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Sima de los Huesos site. Was it the world's first cemetery? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.